You to this program of fond memories of Srila Gurudev. Today we have a very accomplished devotee, very senior devotee, Sripad Gopijanvallabh Prabhu, who has joined us from Vrindavan Dham, from Gopinath Bhavan. We'll hear from him short. First we'll hear a kirtan, and then I will do a little introduction for Prabhuji, and then we're about his memories. We'll start this program with Jai Dhwani. Jai Shri Guru Gaurang Gandharika Giridhari Shri Radha Vinod Bihari Ji ki Jai, Shri Radha Ramana Ji ki Jai, Nitya Leela Pravishtom Vishnupad Ashtotar Sashrimad Bhaktivedanta Shri Narayan Goswami Maharaj ki Jai, Rupad Guruvar ki Jai, Vrindavan Navdeep Dham ki Jai, Anant Koti Vaishnavand ki Jai, Gaur Bhaktavand ki Jai, Shri Harinaam Sankirtan ki Jai, Gaur Premanande Hari Hari. So Prabhuji, what kirtan is he singing?
What kirtan are you singing? Can you hear him?
Yes, I can hear him.
Okay, you tell him what kirtan you're doing.
Okay, now we will sing Guru Charana Kamala Bhajaman.
Okay, Prabhuji, you can start. Thank you so much. If you want, you can turn the camera a little bit towards your side, and then you can start the kirtan. Yes. You can start, Prabhuji.
Shri Guru Charana Kamala Bhajaman. Shri Guru Charana Kamala Bhajaman. Guru Kripa Bina Nahi koi sadhan. Guru Kripa Bina Nahi koi sadhan. Bhajamana bhajanuchan. Bhajamana bhajanuchan. Shri Guru Charana Kamala Bhajaman. Shri Guru Charana Kamala Bhajaman. Milta nahi aisa durlabh jana. Milta nahi aisa durlabh jana. Brahmatao chauda bhuvan. Brahmatao chauda bhuvan. किसी को मिलते हैं अभाग्य से, किसी को मिलते हैं अभाग्य से, हरि भक्तों के दर्शन, हरि भक्तों के दर्शन. किसी को मिलते हैं अहोभाग्य से, हरि भक्तों के दर्शन, हरि भक्तों के दर्शन. ओ श्री गुरु चरण कमल भजमान. Shri Guru Charana Kamala Bhajaman. Krishna Kripa Ki Ananda Murti. Krishna Kripa Ki Ananda Murti. Dina Jana Karuna Nidam. Dina jana karuna nida. Bhakti bhava prem tina prakashata. Bhakti bhava prem tina prakashata. Shri Guru Pati Tapava. Shri Gurupati Papavan Bhakti Bhava Prem Kina Prakashata Shri Gurupati Papavan Shri Gurupati Papavan Shri Guru Charana Kamala Bhajaman Shri Guru Charana Kamala Bhajaman Shruti Smriti Purana Namani Shruti Smriti Purana Namani Kinos Pashta Prama Kinos Pashta Prama Janamana Jivana Guru Padeyapana Janamana Jivana Guru Padeyapana Sadari Namarata Shri Hari Namarata Janamana Jivana Guru Padeyapana Shri Hari Namarata Shri Hari Namarata Shri Guru Charana Kamala Bhajaman Shri Guru Charana Kamala Bhajaman Jaya Gurudeva Jaya Gurudeva Gurudeva Jaya Gurudeva Gurudeva Jaya Gurudeva Gurudeva Jaya Gurudeva
Shri Guru Maharaj ki jai.
Ah,
Very nice, Prabhuji. Very nice. Thank you so much. Dhanyavad. So today we have Gopijanvallabh Prabhu with us, who has joined us from Vrindavan Dham, Gopinath Bhavan, and very with a lot of experience and realizations behind him. Prabhuji received his Harinam 46 years ago from Pujapad Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada. Can you hear me, Prabhuji?
yeah, good.
Okay, great. And then he was awarded diksha 44 years ago from again Prabhupada Bhaktivedanta Swami Maharaj. And he had been living in Vrindavan for last 30 years. So he's a Pakka Dhamvasi, living in Vrindavan Dham. And he is fortunate to live in Srila Prabhupada's bhajan kutir itself directly for 3 years. 3 long years he was there in the bhajan kutir of Swami Bhaktivedanta Swami Maharaj Prabhupada. And then for 27 years he lived in Gaudiya temples as pujari, and also he's doing some cooking for the deities. And he has a long association with our Srila Gurudev, and he has got a lot of instructions from him, which we are going to hear from him very shortly. And he is presently living in Gopinath Bhavan, and he hopes to reside his remaining years in Vrindavan Dham. So what a beautiful introduction. And I think I have seen Prabhuji for from the time I've been visiting Vrindavan, from 90s, early 90s. And even though I've seen him all the time, but I have never had the opportunity to talk with him. I have hardly seen him talk to anybody. In fact, he is a quiet person as far as I know him. I don't see him speaking at all. But Prabhuji has done services for Pujari, but I have seen Prabhuji in the 90s and later also. And he's such a humble person. I have seen him myself with my eyes cleaning Indian toilets in Mathura Math. I don't know if Prabhuji remembers or not, but he used to clean with his own hands, not with a stick or like we do normally. Like we wash utensils in our kitchen, same way he used to clean Indian toilets with his hand and a scrubber. So I was really touched by after I saw him doing like that, such a humble personality, and I always wanted to listen to him. Can you hear me now, Prabhuji?
Yeah.
Because my light has gone suddenly, but I have a standby connection. Yeah, it's fine. So today we all have the opportunity to hear from him. First time was in Vrindavan a few weeks back. I went there and I met him. I requested him to come on the program, and he very graciously agreed to be with us. So today we have a very good opportunity to hear from him. He has a big experience behind him and a big realizations of many years association with Srila Prabhupada and also association with our Srila Gurudev. So today I request him to open his heart to all of us and tell us about his realizations and his things which he has been getting from Srila Gurudev, and how he's so inspired to stay in Vrindavan Dham, and how he's able to do Dham Vas, and how he's planned to live his life entirely in this Dham. Fortunate soul, I mean, to spend so much time in Vrindavan Dham. So yeah, I offer my Dandat Pranams to you, and I welcome you on this time. Dandat Pranams.
Okay. Should I tell how I first came in contact with Narayan Maharaj and start from the beginning?
You can tell whatever you want. We would also love to hear about Swami Prabhupada a little bit. If you want, you can start from how you came to Swami Prabhupada 46 years back. It's up to you.
Okay, I'll start there.
We have enough time. We can be 30, 10. So we have a lot of time.
Okay. Dandavat Pranams. Thank you very much for inviting me here. I'm very happy to see you all. Although I can't see you personally, I can feel your presence in the air, vibrations. So I first came to Krishna consciousness about 1971, traveling around the world, around America. I met the devotees. And when you first meet devotees, the most important thing or the most impressive thing is their natures or their behavior. So when I met the devotees, they had a very unique type of action and behavior that was very attractive, which is complementary to the lifestyle of a saint or a devotee in connection with the spiritual path. Contrary to the nature of a karmi or a person who's not following any, vajravegam, manasavrodavegam, controlling the senses and mind. There's a whole different behavior pattern. There's a whole different psychological experience coming from their association. So I didn't meet Srila Prabhupada directly, but through his devotees, I began to understand that there was something behind them very powerful, because they were always talking about Srila Prabhupada. And whenever they would talk about Srila Prabhupada, they would become totally enlivened, elated, very happy. Like when we first met Srila Gurudev, it was the same kind of experience. So we can see that with any kind of really elevated person, they totally uplift your spiritual consciousness, far beyond the ordinary experience of an ordinary relationship with any personality. Why? Because internally they have a direct connection with Krishna. And when you met someone like Srila Prabhupada directly, or Srila Narayan Maharaj directly, you could actually experience that they had a real connection. So prior to this, I was looking for something spiritual and I didn't find it through yoga, meditation like this. And I could feel just internally out of perception that they weren't really in contact with anything hardly spiritual. So I wasn't really inclined to follow something like that. So the first time I met Srila Prabhupada, I had heard so much about him, and when he was coming, everyone was totally running around crazy with their, so much happiness that Srila Prabhupada was coming, and I had no experience of it at all. So I didn't know what to expect, and I thought Srila Prabhupada would be a giant, a very big personality. But I met him in the airport, in Kennedy Airport, in about 1974, I think it was. And he came in from another direction, which we weren't expecting. And he had his, famous Manila coat on with his peacock feathers, which is very traditional for him to wear, and it made him look very, very beautiful. He came in and he just uplifted the whole airport. And then I realized that Srila Prabhupada, he was very short. Prabhupada was about 5'1", but he had such a personality that he appeared like a giant, like Bhima or Vishwadev, huge, very, very confident. First thing I noticed in that Prabhupada, he had no inhibitions, and he gave a class right in the airport. And then we went to the temple, and later on I got initiated by him. So this was my particular mercy, because I actually had the great fortune to meet a self-realized soul. So to meet a self-realized soul, very, very difficult. What to speak of one or two. I had 3 or 4 or 5 self-realized souls that I met. First one was Srila Prabhupada. Second one was Guru Govinda Maharaj. I had met Radha Govinda Maharaj. They were all self-realized souls, as far as I'm concerned. And Srila Sridhar Maharaj,
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji, I think you're cutting off.
heard his tapes and I heard him realize soul. You can understand, not hearing him. You can hear?
No, Prabhuji, you were cut off for some time. I could not hear you. I only heard up to Gaur Govind Maharaj and Radha Govind Maharaj.
Radha Govinda Maharaj. Okay, now you can hear?
Yes, now we can hear. Yes.
Okay, so I met them. I met them when I came to India in 1991. After initiation, I came to India after 20 years again. Then I met through living in Prabhupada's rooms. I had met many, 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 many people who were telling me about Srila Sridhar Maharaj and Srila Gaur Govinda Maharaj and Srila Narayan Maharaj. 2 of the most important factors in my coming to Srila Narayan Maharaj, which basically what we're trying to discuss here, is Srila Narayan Maharaj's association and his actual ultimate blessings on the whole world, which was, just as significant as Srila Gurudev, Srila Prabhupada, because they both were totally empowered by Mahaprabhu as Shaktivesh avatars, Shaktivesh incarnations, because Srila Prabhupada was the one who brought Krishna consciousness all over the world, fulfilling the mission of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. And he gave that through his Sankirtan movement and his preaching all over the world. And he brought the whole world into Mahaprabhu's consciousness of who Chaitanya Mahaprabhu was. So there, while I was came over Srila Narayan Maharaj. I had never heard of him before. I didn't know who he was, and I had no idea of his personality at all. But through the controversy that arose about, Narayan Maharaj and Prabhupada and his teachings and all that, because the ISKCON leaders, they were going to see Srila Narayan Maharaj. And later on, I heard their tapes and I heard his talks with them. And they were the most wonderful tapes. If anybody has never heard the talks between Srila Narayan Maharaj and the ISKCON GBC, I recommend that you listen to them, because there's an ocean of wealth on Ras in those talks between Srila Narayan Maharaj and the GBC. On Vallabh Manjari, on Jaiva Dharma, on the Bhuri Kandambini, on many of his books, Gopi Geet. I mean, they're amazing. I realized through hearing these tapes how learned a person Srila Gurudev was. He was so distinctly presenting the philosophy of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu and the teachings of the gopis and Raghunath Das Goswami and his Gurudev without any flaw. This is what I really noticed after hearing him for many, many years. Gurudev was flawless in his teaching, his preaching. He was so realized, and when he presented things, it was like my practical experiences, like you felt like you would,
Sorry to interrupt you, Prabhuji. I think that you're cutting off in between. Is it possible to open those windows, or maybe door, or maybe move close to the?
Maybe you can open the windows. Or something.
Yeah, behind you.
So how much did you get?
No, we are only short. You're missing in between. I could hear you, but you just miss in between sometimes. So if you're close to the door, it is better generally.
I'm close to the door. Is it okay?
You open the door, leave the door open actually. So yeah, you'll get some signal.
So through Gaur Govinda Maharaj, I wrote him 2 letters asking him why I was in Radha Damodar. I wasn't really sure why. So I wrote him, I said, why am I here in Radha Damodar? And he told me that you were there because Prabhupada desired you to be there. And this is where I met Srila Narayan Maharaj. Through other devotees, like we met Srila Prabhupada through his followers. I personally met Srila Narayan Maharaj through Tirthapad Prabhu and Shamala Prabhu. They brought me to meet Srila Narayan Maharaj. So I questioned Gaur Govinda Maharaj about it because I wasn't sure at that time. I wasn't very educated philosophically onto the teachings of Mahaprabhu because I was very busy in Gita Nagari farm, working on the farm. Is it breaking up still?
It's better now. It's better.
Okay. So through their personal association, because they had met Narayan Maharaj, they started to tell me about this personality. And I became inquisitive to meet him. So I wrote Gaur Govinda Maharaj 2 letters asking him about Narayan Maharaj and his teachings on Raganuga Bhakti. Because Srila Prabhupada didn't really stress Raganuga Bhakti. He stressed it more Vaidhi Bhakti. And Narayan Maharaj was teaching something a little bit different, which I wasn't really sure if that was what Prabhupada wanted. I was very dedicated to Prabhupada. And because I think of that, he had me transferred from America to India and into his rooms there, where I met many devotees discussing different topics on Prabhupada, Prabhupada's Samadhi, Radha Govinda Maharaj, Gaur Govinda Maharaj, Narayan Maharaj, Srila Maharaj. In that way, I became more familiar with the Gaudiya Math and topics or personalities outside of ISKCON, because we were trained there. That ISKCON was the ultimate center of the spiritual world, and we shouldn't go outside of that. And everyone was frightened to do that. And anyone who was doing that at that particular time, they're ready to tell you to leave ISKCON and go away. So I wrote him 2 letters, and he told me, he said, you should hear from him. because he's a Rasik Vaishnava and he knows this subject, and you should go there and hear from him. So that gave me great encouragement, and I felt like it was coming from Srila Prabhupada, because I knew Gaura Govinda Maharaj, I had met him, and my personal experience with him was amazing. He was he totally put you on a different plane of existence, just like Srila Prabhupada did, just like Srila Narayan Maharaj did, just like all these Srila Sridhar Maharaj did. So I realized that this person, he's given me instructions. I felt out that he was very close to Srila Prabhupada, and I made arrangements through Tirthapad. He brought me to meet Srila Maharaj in Mathura, him and Shamala. So the first time I met him was on his birthday. And it was very exciting. I went to see him and he was there, and I was totally captivated by his personality. He was such a very natural type personality, you know. He was very effulgent, he was very friendly, extremely friendly personality. So on that day, it was his birthday, and we went to the Holy Gate. If anybody knows where the Holy Gate is, it's just up the road from the Gaudiya. So we went there and he gave a class there. I was at Srinivas's house. We went inside Srinivas's house and we went upstairs where Gurudev sat on a couch, and he talked to us and gave us some, you know, Harikatha like this. So after the Harikatha was over, he said, okay, everybody, we go downstairs. It was the first time I had gone to any Gaudiya temple. So I wasn't familiar with the etiquette or anything. It was all totally new to me, you know, everything, being in Mathura, being with Narayan Maharaj. I wasn't sure if it was right or not, you know, this, that, and the next thing. So we went downstairs, we went to the Artik, and then we started to do Tulsi Puja. We circumambulating Tulsi Puja. And you wouldn't believe what Narayan Maharaj did. He got really angry at me, and he ran after me during circumambulating the Tulsi plant, and he started shaking his hand at me like this and yelling at me really intensely. And it just totally overwhelmed me. I was like so scared, you couldn't believe it, because I never expected it. And it was the first time I had met him, so he was very, you know, intensely yelling at me. And
what was he telling you?
Huh?
Why was he yelling?
He was talking in Hindi, so I didn't know what he was saying. And I couldn't follow it, and I didn't really understand why. And to this day, my understanding is that he was, I think because he's a realized soul, he knew that I would be with him. And I think he wanted to capture me right away. So because I was from ISKCON, he knew people in ISKCON weren't inclined to go outside and take shelter in the Gaudiya because we weren't taught that. And they were kind of against it. So because I had went with Tirthapad was connected with him. He had already left ISKCON. And I think he was trying to capture me and bring me in and train me. From the very moment I met him, I felt like he was training me in very subtle ways to break my ego, because I was very proud at that time. ISKCON always thought we're the best, you know, we're number one, and Prabhupada was the only guru. And all the Gaudiya, they weren't so, you know, nice and this and that. So we had prior understanding of all these things. And I think he wanted to smash that right away and give me confidence, and that like a real guru should do. He should chastise you, and maybe he saw that I needed it and that it would help me to come into his Sangha and try to follow him. That was the first time I met him. And then after that, I went back to Radha Damodar temple, where I lived for 3.5 years, 3 years. And then he came to Mathura. He came to Vrindavan in Rupsanatan Gaudiya. Upstairs on the roof, he was giving a darshan. And I heard he was coming, so I brought him a garland. And I brought him a box of sweets. And I handed him the garland and put the garland on him. And he was very happy to get it. He looked at me, and I gave him a box of sweets. And when I gave him the box of sweets, guess what he did? He yelled at me again. He started yelling at me why didn't you open the box? Why didn't you open the box? He said, open the box. And I was totally like, I was so embarrassed, you know, and it was in front of like 40 people, and I was so embarrassed. Anyway, I opened up the box, you know, and I kind of, you know, was so embarrassed. I just went into the background, and he started speaking more and more and more after that. And that was the second time I had met him. So for the first two times to meet someone like that, it's sort of, you're expecting they're going to be very soft with you and gentle and maybe not even talk to you, you know, but he chastised me. Both times really heavy. And then the time he had his downstairs room, I don't know if you probably all have been there before, and he was outside his room there, which I had many, many talks with him there and many occasions to see him there. So he was sitting in his chair outside his room, and I came around and I did a direct Sastan Dungabat right in front of him. And he put his foot on my head.
Oh,
And
wow.
I was like, you know, I couldn't believe he actually did that. And everybody there, after he had done that and he had finished talking, they told me, you can't believe it, you got the mercy. Because the Guru generally won't do that unless he's happy with you or he's trying to give you some mercy. So that was the third time I met him. And then after that, every time I went to him, he would hug me. When I saw him, he would embrace me many times, you know. And he made me feel wanted, you know. And I had a really, over the years, I had a really good relationship with Gurudev. In that sense, he always wanted me to be close to him and walk with him when he'd go on walks. And I went on many parikramas with him. So after many, many times of coming and seeing him, he would embrace me all the time, you know. And I felt so, so happy just to be in his association. So it was the first year, and it was time for Kartik. So it was so many, there wasn't hardly anybody was there at that time. It was very intimate. You could get very close to Gurudev all the time. And he had a few people, and I'd go in his room, and I, you know, would sit right in front of him, and he would talk with us. And he was so, you know, very kind and soft-hearted, and he would always tell us about Radha and Krishna, you know. So I wasn't really convinced about the whole thing at that point because I hadn't had enough philosophical insight to really follow the pathway which he was talking about. And he would always talk about Radha Krishna and Manjari Bhav. So after going to see him many, many times, we asked him many questions. We asked him about the Swarup in the class one time, me and Tirthapad. Because we thought from the Chaitanya Charitamrita that the Swarup wasn't fixed, that it was something that progressively develops by your practicing sadhana, and then the Swarup comes out and you get your Swarup after some time. So we questioned him, we say, is the Swarup something that develops with the bhakti like the beach, which the Guru has implanted in every disciple? And he said, no, he said the Swarup is fixed, eternally fixed there in the heart. So this was one of the main instructions which we needed to know because Jiva Swarupa Hoy Nitya Krishna Das. It proves that the Jiva is not incomplete, like the Babaji say the Jiva Swarup is there when you go back to the spiritual world, or you get your spiritual body. But Gurudev was telling us no. He's saying the Swarup is there in every Jiva, but it's potentially there. Everything is there within the Jiva. Everything, your name, your form, your qualities. And over the time periods that we were with Gurudev, he personally trained us in that way. He gave us step-by-step instructions about the Swarup, about the relationship with the Guru. Srila Prabhupada, for instance, gave us a lot of, he gave everything in his books. But Srila Gurudev told us that he summarized everything. And he didn't really teach the way Gurudev did on the subject matters of the higher rasas, because we were from the Western countries, the Western people, and Prabhupada's main mission was the West. And he didn't really have disciples who could grasp the philosophical points and the conceptions that lead to the higher stages of bhakti, like Shraddha, Nistha, Ruchi, or Sakti Bhakti. We couldn't really understand those things coming from ISKCON, because he didn't really speak on them to us. He mentioned them all in his books, but like in Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu, which is the Nectar of Devotion, which Prabhupada put out in the beginning. If you read it when you were in ISKCON, you couldn't follow them. It was impossible. I read them many times and I had no idea what he was talking about, nor did I have any practical experience. And Srila Gurudev, he started off right from the beginning, from Shraddha Mystery. He was giving us Shraddha, he was giving us Abhideha, he was giving us Sambandha, and he was giving us Prayojan, all at the same time. So he was quite unique in that sense, because he was dealing with more personalities who were of a higher nature, like a lot of these people like Savita, Subhananda at that time, Tirtha Maharaj, Subhananda was his name, and Van Maharaj was there, and Madhava Maharaj, and Sridhar Maharaj, and Omadidi, who had been around Srila Gurudev for many years, So they were all quite elevated. So in the beginning, Gurudev, just by going and seeing him, he would talk all these really high subject matters, which were very difficult to understand, but he was very considerate, and he would, later on, he would gradually teach us more of the subject matters. So in the beginning, when I first met him, he told one devotee that I'm not sure if he'll stay with me. You hearing clearly?
No, Prabhuji, we missed you for a while. Can you repeat the last sentence, I think?
Where did you leave?
Just a minute, just a few seconds back. Yeah, last sentence.
So he would teach us all these different concepts, Samdanda, Abhideya, and Prayojan, but he would actually train us. This was the difference between Srila Narayan Maharaj and Srila Prabhupada, because Prabhupada was basically giving us Sambandha and giving the understanding about Impersonabad and Mayavad and all this. And Srila Gurudev was more training us more in Abhideha, or higher instructions on Prayojan Tattva. And he had many followers who were somewhat elevated in that, because they had heard from him for 15, 20 years already. So we were very fortunate in the beginning to be in those classes. If you can't hear me, then just say something and then I'll start again. So we were very fortunate at that time, and he would invite us in his room, and we could sit right next to him, and there was only very few people. It was very intimate, and Gurudev was very friendly, and it was very, relaxing atmosphere, as compared to later on, and many years later, where Gurudev had so many followers, it was difficult for him to reach the general public on such intimate pastimes. So I was there, and a few other people were there, Vrindavan Vilasini and a few others, Tirthapad. So I felt greatly fortunate at that time, but I didn't have Nishtha. At that time, I didn't have Nishtha at that time, because I didn't have enough philosophical understanding to understand the teachings, or was this what Srila Prabhupada really wanted, So this is why I wrote Lord Govinda Maharaj's letter, to question him whether Srila Prabhupada would accept, or if that's what he really wanted from us. And he told me yes. So I began to try to follow a little bit more. And I went to Srila Gurudev with Tirthapad one time, And we went in his room with him and he told me, he said, you're okay, you know, he was very friendly. He said, I don't have time to teach you. I am very busy, I'm writing, I'm giving classes and this. So he told me you should learn from Tirthapad. Because Tirthapad Prabhu, he was with Srila Sridhar Maharaj, and he was with him for many, many years. And Srila Sridhar Maharaj was one of the great pandits in the Gaudiya Math. He was probably one of the most elevated, and he was from, I think it was from the Bhadaraj lineage. So he was from, huh? Bhattacharya? What's that? Bhattacharya lineage. And so he gave me Tirthapad to teach me and train me. And Tirthapad was very learned scholar at that time, even this was like 30 years ago, you know, and I didn't know anything. So I lived with him for some time and he would train me about all the books that Narayan Maharaj was writing at about that time. So I got the mercy in that sense. So then Parakram came. It was around Kartik time and hardly anybody was there. Maybe we had one bus load. So at that time, I would always sit close. Gurudev would tell me, come and sit over here. He'd sit right next to me, you know, and I'd sit really close with him and he would talk, he would say things and look at me a lot. And so, you know, just by being around him, Gurudev would always say, even if you don't understand what I'm saying, if I'm speaking in Hindi, he said, just be near me because you will pick up on my moods, my emotions, my feelings, my bhavs. So this is what I did. And this is his mercy towards me, because I know that without that close connection of physical presence, it is what I feel is the most important thing, which I didn't have with Srila Prabhupada. I only had his books and like this. So the feelings I had for Narayan Maharaj were more intensified by the relationship that he created with me through his concern about me. Later on, he told Brajanath Prabhu, you take care of him. I want you to take care of him. So he had some concern for me. He knew I wanted to live in India, and a few times he told me he wanted to give me Ketch's sannyas. So we're going on Parakama that year. It was the first time we went out. And I got on the bus with him, and he sat right across from me. I was on one side of the bus, and he was on the other. And there were maybe two buses, so there wasn't very many people. It was very intimate. And we got to the first stop, where toll was like this. And we were stopped there for some time, and Gurudev kept looking out of the bus, you know, and there was some problem outside. I don't know if you ever heard the story before. Anyway, you can hear?
Yes, we can hear.
Okay.
I think I was there in that bus. There was a problem at the border.
Yeah.
And Yati Maharaj was there, the fat Maharaj.
Right.
And did something outside.
Right.
And Gurudev gave a kick to someone, right?
So Gurudev, he was there, and all of a sudden I was sitting right next to him, and I could see he was getting a little restless, you know. So he jumped up really fast and ran off the bus and went outside, and he started yelling at the guy because he was trying to cheat us or something with the taxi. Yeah. And the guy grabbed Gurudev by the hand, you know, and Sri Gandhi Maharaj, who later was initiated by him, he grabbed the guy and he hit him. And Gurudev looked at Sri Gandhi Maharaj and he said, what are you doing? He said, you don't know what you're doing here. This is India. You don't do these things. He said, you're from the West, you know. So there was a big riot, and everybody came off the buses, and they had sticks and this and that, and they were breaking windows in the buses, you know. And finally, it all finished, and Gurudev came back on the bus. And I was sitting directly across from him. And he looked over at me and he started to smile. And he had this big grin on his face, and he said, this is India, Prabhu. So, and then we went, later on, we went, and did Parikrama. Just being with Gurudev at those times and visiting all the holy places, he gave you such a realization that he was actually there, and experiencing what was actually happening, because he's a realized soul. At first, I didn't really think he was realized. I had no idea. And later on, after a little period of time, he actually revealed to me in my heart and personally, physically, that he wasn't from this material world. I had this impression from him, and then after that, I had more of a connection with him. So walking with Gurudev, being with Gurudev, totally brought you into a new realm of Krishna, because it wasn't just a kalpana, like generally you have an imagination through the books and this and that. But Gurudev, when he would speak to us, because he was the main speaker there, and he would speak to us and he would tell us all these different pastimes about the bhajan stali and, Govinda Kund and different places where Radha and Krishna met. And he would tell us the stories. And it was so realistic. He gave you such a taste. Every time you were with Gurudev, he really was, because he had love in his heart, and he was empowered by Chaitanya Mahaprabhu to spread. The Mahaprabhu came to give love of God, and he came to give spontaneous devotion. And Prabhupada and Narayan Maharaj were definitely linked in that mission through Rupa Goswami, who totally empowered. He gave the books and all the Goswamis, and Prabhupada was one of the main people coming down from Rupa Goswami and the 6 Goswamis, Vishwanath, Bhaktivinoda Thakur, Bhakti Siddhanta, Bhakti Pragyan, Keshava Maharaj. I mean, when Gurudev talked about Keshava Maharaj, it was amazing. He said he had never seen anybody who could quite, when he would sing in kirtan or dance, he said he'd never seen anything like that anywhere. He had such a bhav. And whenever he would talk about Krishna, he would have tears in his eyes. He just had so much love for his Gurudev, And he transferred that into your heart, because that was the mission which Mahaprabhu wanted, and he was carrying on that mission. And he told us one time in his room when we were there, because the ISKCON people were debating and trying to create conflicts in the world, that what Narayan Maharaj was teaching us was not bona fide, and it wasn't Srila Prabhupada's desire. And he told us in the room, when we started to debate, Shamarani and a bunch of other people were debating back and forth and giving their explanations and their rebukes about what they were saying. And Gurudev looked at us, he was sitting on his bed, and he looked over and he said, "No more." He said, "These people are not qualified, they don't have proper sukriti, and they will never understand these things." He also told us that practically everyone in ISKCON was in Madhurya Ras, and that everyone was in manjari. And this is what Mahaprabhu came to give. And he said, "I am so strong." He said, "I can defeat the whole world." He said, "My heart is so strong." And by that, if you would have been there, it was amazing the way Gurudev said it. He had such shakti. He was never afraid of anyone, any, kind of controversy or anything. He was very, very bold. And he was so powerful, he could change anyone's mind. He did that. And when he would go and preach, and he would go on the parikrama to Nandagram, they had the idea that Krishna and Radharani were married. And he totally smashed that whole idea. And when he smashed that idea, they accepted it. And then they gave him the title Yugacharya. So Gurudev had so much shakti, like Srila Prabhupada, he could change the heart of everyone. And this was his whole business, was to create a softening of the heart so that he could penetrate he told us many times, he said, you come before me in classes. He would give, we'd go many times to his classes. And he would say, you should all come before me and empty your minds. You hear?
Yes.
Empty your hearts so that I can do my doctor work. And I can, install in your hearts what you need. And you could see that you could actually experience that every personality that was there, although he was giving general instructions, he was so clever and so realized, like Sukadeva Goswami, when he spoke to the sages of Naimisharanya, he spoke to Parakit Maharaj, but the instructions were going to individual persons according to their ability to absorb the philosophy, the tattva, and it was meant for the broad masses, the whole general population, but each person could understand it according to their ability. So he wasn't just like a sectarian person. He wasn't dealing with each individual person. He would give personal instructions, and he would give broad instructions for everybody, but not everybody could follow it. So therefore, he told us, don't bother with this anymore. This isn't our business. Our business is to do bhajan and to follow the teachings of Mahaprabhu. And then he began to instruct us more and more about, I don't know if you were there, but he taught us about Lokik Shraddha and Paramatika Shraddha.
Yes.
And he said in order to enter into the process of Raganuga Bhakti, you have to have Lokik Paramatika Shraddha. And then he was telling us different things where he introduced the process of Vishramba. Vishramba Seva means intimate. And this is what Gurudev gave us all the time, because he was trying to soften our hearts, because in order to enter into Rag Marg and go into the highest stages, you have to have mamata, which means intimacy, or, like this. And Lokik Vishramba means intimacy. So because he was like that, he implanted that into you by his teachings, and it was a gradual process. He began to speak about the different gradations of the dhams, like Dwarka, Mathura, and Vrindavan. And he totally classified each one. What was Dwarka, which was competent, because it had a mixture of, first he described Sadharani Bhakti. Sadharani means someone like Kubja had Sadharani Rati, which means it was somewhat competent. But it wasn't like really pure Bhakti. And in Dwarka, it was Samanjasa with the queens. But their Bhakti was also a little bit tinged with Aishvarya, which means awe and reverence and opulence. And Gurudev was giving us this tattva, and then he said, so we want some Samartha Rati, because Samartha means fully competent to please Krishna, and it has no inhibitions in it. So he was teaching us these different tattvas, and he's saying if you want to enter into this, you have to have Vishramba, because without Vishramba for Guru, how can you have a relationship with Krishna? So first you go through the Guru, and he teaches you about Sambandha, Abhideya, Prayojana, and he gives you Vishramba. What Srila Prabhupada was a little bit different in that sense, that he didn't really give us that. He was more awe and reverence. So to come to Gurudev and have him deal with you in that sense, it was totally like exciting, like anything. It was like every time you came to Gurudev, he would give you something new, It was like, wow, I can't believe this. And to grasp all these things and to actually begin to follow them, which what he really wanted us to do. That's why he was teaching us all these things. would take many, many years. And I went into him one time and I asked him for some mantras. And he told me, he said, have you passed the modes of material nature? And I said, I didn't really know. I said, no, I had no idea, about all these different things. He said, first you go rise above the modes of material nature, then you can come to these higher stages. He said, you're a brahmachari, now you're following this process. He said, but this will take you 25 years to understand about this much, which means maybe a few percentage points, I had no idea what he was talking about, I had no experience of it. It was all brand new to me. Now I'm like in his Sangha for 30 years and trying to follow his teachings more closely every day because I know that Gurudev is with me all the time. He comes to me many times, many, I can't even tell you how many times in my dreams. He's always there in your heart. And if you're not hearing to him talking to you all the time, that means that you didn't have a really good connection with him. You should feel, because he gave you beach. He increased your beach, and those moods that he was giving at that particular time of his personal physical association is what you have in your heart. And he was giving it in such a pure way that when you look inside and go more internal, because he would always tell us, you have to develop your heart. You have to develop your internal heart, not your mind, not your intelligence, because this isn't what Raganuga is all about. It's all about the heart. It's not about the mind. So he was telling us you go into that, and then you can have and develop a personal relationship with Krishna, which is intimate and beyond the modes of material nature. And so after 25 or 30 years, now I begin to realize, and I appreciate his instructions a lot more now than I did then, because I had no realization there at all. And also, like Gurudev, some of his personal instructions to me, which really opened up my heart to him, was when there was an issue about Srila Prabhupada giving initiations through the ear, through a tape, because many people were saying that you have to hear it through the ear. And if you don't hear it through the ear, you don't really get the connection with the Guru. And so I said, I have enough of this. I'm going to go to Srila Gurudev and ask him about it. So he was there in Vrindavan, and I went up to him, and he said, so what do you want? And I said, well, Gurudev, there's a controversy, about Prabhupada giving initiation on a tape. Was I initiated by Prabhupada? Even though I heard, he said, so what do you think? And I said, yes, I feel like I got initiated by through a tape. He said, so then what's the problem? And he gave me the conviction that there was no problem. I was initiated. So he told me, but you come to me and I will give you the mantras again, just so, you feel more happy and satisfied. So he told me to come to his room. I was in Mathura, and he said, come. And he was sitting on his bed, and he told me, okay. He said, you sit here. I sat down in front of him, and he was sitting there. Gurudev was so awesome to be in front of him alone, because he was such a high personality. And he didn't really know, for a Western person, I didn't really know how to, I was still very much in awe and reverence of him, So he told me to sit down. He began to describe the mantras. And it was amazing. He got to his Gurudev, and he began to explain his emotions and his feelings towards his Gurudev. You can hear me?
Yes, yes.
Okay. He gave me his emotions and his feelings towards his Gurudev and how much he loved him. And he was practically crying.
Wow.
And I was like amazed. It totally blew me right off the wall. And I realized what he was really doing was softening my heart towards him, because I realized he was giving me his heart and he was giving me his feelings towards his Gurudev, which he gave me in my heart, and it helped me to have the same feelings towards him. So this is one of the main things that Gurudev gave me, which made me feel like he was like really my friend, my guru, my father. I always saw Gurudev as my father because he treated me like that. And he treated me like a friend. And he treated me like a guru. Whatever I needed at a particular time, he gave me that particular relationship. So I had that kind of relationship with him. Another instance is when I always had I had a joking relationship with Gurudev, you know. And one time, it was one of the earlier times of the my first coming to Gurudev. He invited us all in the room, a bunch of Westerners and some Indians, and he was about to take his massage. So Tridandi Maharaj was there, and a few other people were there. He said, okay, and one did the foot, one did the hand, one did the head, one did the feet, isn't it? And I believe I was doing either his arm or his hands. And we were massaging him for a while, and all of a sudden he had his eyes closed. And it was amazing. It was so, unique experience to actually be with him alone like that in his room. And he opened up his eyes and he looked at me. He said, oh, he said, your hands, they're so cold. He said, don't do me anymore. He said, you stop. And everybody else kept going and everybody else was laughing, And Gurudev said, stop, stop, stop. And they all were telling me, you should go, you should go, you should go. And Gurudev, he looked at me and he said, no. He said, he should stay because he'll make me laugh. So, it made me feel really good because everyone was, telling me to get out. And Gurudev was very sensitive. He was so sensitive to your feelings and your emotions that you just felt so like, he knew your heart. And you felt like he knew what was in your heart. So it was very embarrassing sometimes to go before Gurudev because I felt like he knows everything about me, And the self-feel I saw, like he would often talk about, Sanatan Goswami, he said, he was so clever or so realized, he knew the hearts of everyone. He could understand their feelings, their emotions, and everything. And I really felt like that with Gurudev. He knew my heart. And it was very difficult to go to him sometimes and just speak because, I wasn't I'm a kind of like a little shy, but, I didn't know what to say at the time. And I didn't want to, present myself as overly aggressive or something like that. So to be natural in front of a person who's totally natural and uninhibited, very difficult, So that was another situation. But then many times Gurudev was giving personal darshans, like one time he was in Mathura and he was on the roof. There was so many people were there, and I had just came in the door, walked up the stairs, and he was sitting there in his chair, and he was surrounded by about 40 people. And he looked over at me as I came up the top of the stairs, and he called me over. He said, come here, come here. So I went over to him, and he leaned over to me. I got really close to him. I put my ear next to him. And he said, I just had my room painted. So I want you to go into my room and look around and see what color do you think I should paint it? you know. So I went into his room, and you know, I was so happy just to have Gurudev to call me over. I went into his room and I looked around. It was a beautiful room. And I thought, you know, I'm going to go outside and I'm going to joke Srila Gurudev, you know, because we had that kind of, you know, reciprocation with each other, and he really liked it. And I went up to him and he said, so what do you think? And he called me over right in the middle of a darshan, you know, and he called me over. He said, so what do you think? So I leaned over to him and I said, Gurudev, I think you should paint it the color of the rainbow. And he laughed. He laughed so hard you couldn't believe it. And he just laughed and laughed and laughed. And everybody, they came up to me and they said, you couldn't believe, I've never seen Gurudev laugh so hard in his life. And it was such a, you know, heart-rendering experience to have Gurudev laugh with you and joke with you and feel intimate. And he told me a few times, he told me when he was giving me the mantras, I forgot to tell this, but when he was giving me the mantras, just to create a further relationship with him, he told me, you can come in my room anytime you want. And he said, you know, I used to go in my Gurudev's room. I used to come in very late at night after doing seva and this and that. And I used to sleep under his bed. And I was amazed, you know, because I didn't have any idea about that at all. And he told me, so he said, you come in my room anytime you want. And if you want, you come in my room, you can sleep underneath my bed. And I felt so happy to hear that, you know. And, you know, Gurudev was always increasing those moods in the heart. So, but, you know, then after some time, I was living in Rup Sanatan Gaudiya for like 8 years. And he would come there many times. And you were talking about cleaning the toilets before. And I would do that in Rup Sanatan Gaudiya. Are we still there?
He's still there.
Okay, so I would do that in Rup Sanatan Gaudiya. But because I didn't really have any seva at that time, I thought I'll paint Gurudev's temple. It was his temple. It was, you know, needed painting. So I would go to many different people and I would collect money. And I started to paint one room, one room, one room. I painted the whole temple. And
Yes, I think I saw you doing that many times.
I did it, and it took me, you know, like a long time, because there was 2, 3 floors, you know. And Gurudev, I have to stop here and tell you a little bit of something else that needs to be explained. When I first met Gurudev, after some time, I wanted to relate with Gurudev about his teachings. And my name was Gudakesh at that time. So this is Arjuna's name on the battlefield, and I felt very much like a Kshatriya, you know. And I felt, you know, Krishna and Arjuna in the war and this and that. And I said, Gurudev, I went into his room and I asked him, I said, Gurudev, you know, you're giving us teachings on Manjari Bhav and Gopi Bhav and Madhurya Ras, and can you give me a name that I can relate with? Because my name's Gudakesh. And he said, okay. He said, you come back in a few days, and I said. So I came back after maybe 3 or 4 days. And I came in the temple and I was going past Gurudev's room. And all of a sudden, from the background, I hear Gurudev in his room, and he says to me, he said, hey, I have your name now. Hey, I have your name now. So he called me in the room, and he was the only one in there. And he said, okay, he said, sit down. And I sat down, and he said, so your name is Gopijanvallabh. He didn't explain anything to me, he just said Gopi Vallabha. So I was very happy to receive that name because one of my favorite devotees is in ISKCON. His name is Gopijana Vallabha. And I love that name so much. And I never expected it. I didn't know what to expect. And when I got that name, I felt very happy. So I had gone back after that and went to Rup Sanatan. He came there. And he was, you know, he would come in and everybody would surround him. And he walked up the stairs and he saw me. He said, hello? He said, come here. And I went up to him and he said, you know, he said, I'm so happy with you. He said, you painted my whole temple. He said, I'm so happy for it. He pointed up to the top where the flags are on the, you know, above the deities. He said, I am going to put you in a murti up there on the top of the temple because I am so happy with you.
Wow.
And it made me feel really good, you know. And then I said, Gurudev, you know, they're telling me my name is Gopijana Vallabha, but you told me it was Gopi Vallabha. And he said, yeah, Gopijana Vallabha. So I was very happy to get that name, and I just love the name so much. And then Gurudev told me maybe 3 or 4 times, he told me, I want to give you Ketcha Sannyas. Because when I first joined India, ISKCON, I wanted to live in India because I was hearing from the Krishna book stories about Vrindavan. And I always, because I was attracted, even from the very beginning, I must have had some previous samskars in the mood of separation, because these were the most attractive topics to me. It was like the Gopi Gita, Pramara Gita, feelings of reunion and Gopi's rasa dance. And so, I forgot. Oh, so he knew that I wanted, so I always wanted to live in India and live in India for the rest of my life, which you mentioned in my thing there. So I think Gurudev knew that, and he wanted me to live in India for the rest of my life. So I think, because I've lived here for 30 years, and I think I know for sure it's all been arranged by Srila Gurudev. So the mercy was there from Srila Gurudev. And I had something else I wanted to say, but you have to give me a minute. If you have any questions, can you add something? Because my mind right now is a little bit.
Would you like? Yeah.
I can give you some more experiences with Gurudev that you probably want to hear.
Yes, please, Prabhu.
Unless you have any questions.
No, please go on. I'll ask you a question later when you finished.
Okay, so I was getting to this point, I think, before, but then I'm kind of mixing it because these things are just coming to me and I'm trying to explain it. This temple here, Gopinath Bhavan, was an empty lot. And Gopinath Prabhu and Tumabidi, they bought the property. And they wanted it for Gurudev. And they told Gurudev, we want to build a place for you there. And Gurudev said, yes. He said, I'll come there, but I just want a bhajan kutir for myself and for my Gurudev. My Gurudev's Pushpa Samadhi. So they said, okay. And then when Gurudev came, they had started to build a housing project, which was, like 1 floor, 2 floors or something. And Gurudev was in the West at that time. He started preaching about 1995 or 6 was when he first went to the West. And he had come back and he came to Gopinath Bhavan and he walked in the door, with a bunch of devotees, and I was there. And he walked in and he came up to me and he was really angry. He said, what is this? he said, I didn't want this. You know, he said, what is this? And I was like practically shaking. He was really angry because he didn't want it, you know. He just wanted his bhajan kutir and this Puspa Samadhi, and they had built a big structure there. And, you know, Tunga Vidya was just in the distance coming. And I didn't know what to say to Gurudev. And when Gurudev tells you something, you should respond right away. But I was so scared, I didn't know what to say because, you know, and I say, well, Gurudev, there's Tunga Vidya, you know, you can ask her. So he looked at Tunga Vidya and she came over and she began to describe to him, you know, we wanted to build the housing and this and that. And, you know, Gurudev wasn't happy with it. And, so later on, we made the deities and Gurudev installed the deities. And after we had installed the deities there, Srila Gurudev, he pointed me head pujari in his room one day. He said, you come here. I said, yes, Gurudev. He said, now we have a temple. He said, I want you to be the head pujari. You're in charge. And I said, Gurudev, me? Only me? And he said, yeah, only you. I said, you mean I have to do everything? And I was thinking because there was nobody there. And I thought, well, I have to dress them, I have to do this, and I have to do this. And this was my idea. And I said, well, Gurudev, I have to do everything. And he said, yeah, you have to do everything. Everybody started to laugh, you know, and I said, oh my God. So Gurudev came to the temple and we were doing, you know, we started to do the worship. He installed the deities. It was a grand installation. And, it was very beautiful. And Gurudev was very masterful in everything he did. But a couple of days later, or it was maybe a couple of weeks later, he came in the temple and he called me over. Me and Tunga Vidya were there, and he called me over. He said, the deities are unhappy.
What is that?
And he said, the deities, they're not happy.
Oh.
And we were like devastated, you know. And Gurudev was really like, he was upset. You know, he could see that the deities weren't happy because at that time we were just starting the puja and we didn't have much paraphernalia. And they didn't have much money at that time because we hadn't started it. They bought these small crowns. And Gurudev didn't like it at all. And we were like, oh my God, what do we do? So we were kind of like devastated. So Gurudev left and we made further arrangements to make nicer outfits and better crowns. Gurudev came back again after that, after some time. And now he came back in and he said, now the deities are happy. So we all became happy again. We were very much worried that Gurudev wouldn't like it. And, you know, because to displease the Guru is like, you can't even imagine how devastating it is, you know. One time I was in charge of the books. He put me in charge of the book room. And I had collected a huge amount of money. And Gurudev was away in the West or something. And I left the money inside and I had counted it and everything. And I went back one day, some of it seemed to be missing. And I said, oh my God, I can't believe it. Immediately I called up Gurudev and I told him, I said, Gurudev, I said, I had collected a lot of money, you know, and it appears that some of it's missing. And he said, well, how much did you collect? And I told him I had about 3 lakhs of rupees, you know, and he said, what? He said, why did you do that? He said, you never should have done that. He said, you should have went to Mathura and deposited the money with, at that time, Purandar was, now Nishinga Maharaj, was, I think he was somewhat in charge in the mutt there, you know, with the one training on and a few other people. So he told me immediately bring the money in there. And he said, don't ever do that again, you know. And so when he started questioning me about it, I felt so bad, you know, because I knew I had displeased Gurudev somewhat by being like a little bit irresponsible. And I started to cry, you know. And just to show you what it means to the experience to displease the Guru is so devastating. Because, you know, it like totally disturbs your whole mind and what, anyway, that happened. So, sometimes Gurudev appeared to be happy with you, and other times he appeared to be like a little neglectful of you. But what I really felt like he was trying to do was to bring you to the point of more surrender to him. So if he acted like he was pleased with you all the time, then you would feel like everything's good. He was trying to teach us process of surrendering. So if whether it was like a drama or he was just trying to increase, surrender. Give your heart to me. One time one devotee went to Gurudev and she went up to Gurudev and she said, Gurudev, you're going to the West. How will I think of you? How will I be with you? And Gurudev said, well, he said, if you don't think of me, you can't, then you're not my disciple. So it was, you wanted to please Gurudev, and because Gurudev was teaching you that to surrender to him, because Gurudev many times would say, without the Guru's mercy, you can't go 1 inch, whether you're a learned scholar or anything, even if you're doing hundreds of types of services. If you're not surrendered to Gurudev, you won't get 1 inch of bhakti. And I further questioned him on that one time. And I said, Gurudev, I have no qualifications at all. I can't do any translations. I don't know Sanskrit. I can't write books. I'm not a kirtan player. How can I serve you properly? So he told me, he said, don't worry. He said, this is not the priority. He said, what the real priority is that you're submissive to me. If you have submission, whether you're qualified in any field or not, real Guru Seva is to be submissive to the Guru. And if you have that mood of shelter, where the Guru is the Ashraya and you're the servant, and you have that mood, then the Guru can give you everything. And he would tell us that all the time. You just take shelter of me, and without taking shelter of the Guru, you won't go anywhere. So, that left a permanent impression on my heart that, I'm not qualified, but everybody should think that even if you're not qualified, but you love Gurudev, this is what he really wanted. He didn't want to hear comments on people. Oh, he's doing this wrong, this wrong, this wrong. He said, but he loves me. That's what he used to say. He said, he loves me, he has affection for me, and that's all he wanted. You have affection. This is what he was teaching us. All the years when I met him, affection is the most important thing. And without that affection, there's no relationship with the Guru. So, and if you don't question the Guru, he would always tell us, he said, my relationship with my Guru Maharaj was, I'd ask him so many questions, and he said, my Guru Maharaj would answer so many questions. So he was kind of implanting that in our hearts. And so I really feel myself, because a lot of people have different opinions about what's more important, either the instructions of the Guru or his personal Vani or Bhakti. But my personal opinion on that, due to my personal experience, is that without personally seeing the behavior and, being in the presence of his moods and his emotions, how will you get the desire to follow the teachings in the books? The books is a book. It's passive, The book's not gonna, well, maybe be able to talk to you, but, generally not. But you can pick up from the personal Bapu and the personal teachings of the Guru, his internal moods. And through my whole lifetime with Gurudev, which is 30 years, he would give us so many pastimes of Krishna and the manjaris and this and that. That was his complete mercy on everyone in the world. So if you hear his tapes and you hear him express these things, you're right in the spiritual world, no matter if you're new or old, you know. So, do we have a lot of time left?
It's okay. It's only 9:30. You can go on.
Okay, so we've been speaking for about an hour and a half now, huh?
Really, you can go on this time. Don't worry.
You want me to go on? Okay.
Yes, yes.
So, I'll give you maybe just two more, you know, two more experiences I had with Gurudev, which were totally amazing to me. When I first, I had a Giriraj. I forget how I got it, but I had it painted. I had it on, eyes and this. And one really good artist from ISKCON was here, and I had to decorate him with gopi dots and eyes, and it looked very, very, very beautiful. And I was so happy. I wanted to show Gurudev, And he came to the temple, Gopinath Bhavan, downstairs in the temple room, and I went up to him and I said, Gurudev, I said, I have my Giriraj, and I just had him painted. And he said, who's Giriraj? And I said, well, I have my Giriraj. He said, who's Giriraj? And I said, well, your guru, I knew he meant, I said, your Giriraj. Yeah, okay. So he said, so what? Well, I said, well, I just had him painted, and I want you to see him. So believe it or not, Gurudev's sometimes either couldn't follow or misunderstood what I was trying to say. I had him decorated, but I said painted. So he thought that I had taken the whole Giriraj and painted the whole thing, because I was a painter, And he looked at me, and he was so angry. He looked at me and he said, would you paint my face? Just like that. And because I had that kind of relationship with Gurudev, and he said that, and I never expected him to say that, and I didn't really catch it right away. I thought he was joking me. And I was about to say, well, yeah, Gurudev, because I thought it was a joke, And I looked at him, and he looked quite disturbed, and I thought, well, maybe I should be a little careful, So I said, well, no, Gurudev, I wouldn't do that. And because if I would have said that, Gurudev was famous for just like whacking people, And one time Ashram Maharaj was in somewhere in the West, and he told him, he said, you lead a kirtan. And he led a kirtan. He told him, you sing this specific song. And he led the kirtan, but it wasn't that song. And he ran up to Ashram Maharaj and bam, he punched him, knocked him right on the ground. And you know how big Ashram Maharaj is, he's massive. To knock him on the ground, you must have some special shakti, And anyway, I heard it from Ashram Maharaj, I found from different people. And so, I could have got a good whack, and I probably would have cried. And he later went, in the opposite direction. Then he came back, and he looked at me, and he was really angry, But I wasn't affected by it because I knew what I meant, and I knew he misunderstood me. So it was kind of like a little surprised that I wasn't scared, Anyway. So that was one thing.
So did he see your Giriraj eventually? He saw that?
Yeah, I showed it to him, and then he looked at it, and then, it was right there. It was in my room. I used to live in a little cupboard over there, going through the hallway.
Where is your Giriraj now, Prabhuji? Are they with you right now?
No, what happened was, it's a long story.
Okay.
I have one other Giriraj, not the same one, but that one I put it in another place, and I gave it to someone because shalograms and Girirajas, I wound up with about 20 of each. And so many people would come to me because I was the head pujari. Many people come, can I have a Giriraj? Can I have a Shalagam? Can I have a Giriraj? Can I have a Shalagam? And I go to Gurudev and he said, yeah, you can give, you can give, you can give. But make sure they don't take him out of India, because he didn't want it to go out of India. Gurudev was very strict, and he told me, yeah, you can give like that. So I don't have that original one, but he's just up the road here, and I gave him to one ashram where Raganuga Maharaj was. Because now I have in my room, but I have one big one which I got, and I'm doing a little puja there, and like that. So I wanted to tell one other story in the early days. After Gurudev first gave sannyas, they gave to Madhava Maharaj and Aranya Maharaj and Tirtha Maharaj and Bhan Maharaj. So that year we went on Parikrama. This is really a funny story. We went on Parikrama and we were in Nandagram. And we were in first one Nandagram, first one Varshana. I think we were in Varshana and we were heading towards Nandagram, and we were late. And Gurudev was telling everybody, hurry, come on, we have to go now. He said, put your bead bags away. Everybody get on the buses and let's go. We're late, don't be late, this and that. And Bhan Maharaj and Aranya Maharaj at that time, they had a lot of followers, and they were preachers and they were preaching. And, Gurudev came out and, okay, let's go. And they didn't listen to him at all. They just kept preaching and preaching and preaching and preaching. I was right next to Gurudev. And then he looked at them again. He said, come on. He said, we have to go. He said, stop preaching and let's get on the buses. So they didn't do it again. So Gurudev got angry. I was right next to him. He went over to Aranya Maharaj and grabbed his sannyas cloth right here and tore it right off his body. And I laughed so hard, And he went up to Bhan Maharaj and he went, bam, and he knocked him on the ground. And I'm looking down at Bhan Maharaj, and he's laying on the floor and he's crying. He was crying, It was so funny. And I'm standing right next to Gurudev and I'm laughing like that. I had my hand in my bag, and Gurudev kind of like crept over to me like a cat, And he went, whoa, and he tried to grab my beads from my hand, but he missed. And, he didn't say anything to me, but that was like another experience that you didn't know what to expect from Gurudev at any time, and he really had like a explosive like mood sometimes, and you didn't know what to expect from him, and you get up and you speak, and everybody was terrified because in the beginning days, Gurudev used to ask people to get up and speak. And a lot of people were scared to death because Gurudev was very, strict. And he would often tell, I seen him with Nimi Maharaj. Nimi Maharaj he said, you speak on Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, Nimi Maharaj started to talk on Mahaprabhu. And Gurudev was sitting in Mathura on the Vyasa, he started to get up, speak about Mahaprabhu. And Gurudev stopped, he said, stop. He said, he's a faker. Right in front of like 200 people, he's a faker. And so you didn't really know what to expect from Gurudev. He was very explosive. But he was so exciting to be around that it was worth every minute of it. I left ISKCON, I had a shelter there forever. And I took a risk due to the mercy of Tirthapad, encouraging me to do that, and show Sridhar Maharaj about, not society conscious, but God consciousness. And through their mercy, and I left ISKCON, and I do it 100 times again. And I'm so happy that I met Srila Gurudev, and I love him so much. And my last thing which I'll just say now is when Gurudev was at the end of his life, I traveled with Gurudev so many times, it was so unique. At the end of his life, when he started to get sick, he let me know that he was leaving. And I knew it in my heart. He was telling me in my heart because I just, I knew he was going to leave soon. And so I was praying to him so hard. Gurudev, when you leave, please take me with you. I don't want to stay here. You bring me with you when you go. So he knew that. I knew he knew it. And last time he was here at Gopinath Bhavan, a couple of months or so before he left, and started to get more and more sick. I went up to his room and he was sitting on his bed. And there was no one there, And I sat on his bed with him, which was very bold, Not many people would do that. I don't even imagine how I did it, but somehow I just felt like it was the thing to do, and I just sat right next to him on his bed with him. And he reached over to me and he started to stroke me like a friend, like, how are you? And I reached over to him and we were both doing we were both stroking each other like this, And it was such an intimate exchange that it made me realize that Gurudev actually really loved me, And then that was like one of the last, I can tell more stories, but that was one of the last experiences I had, which was probably one of the greatest. Like when he told me about, his Guru Maharaj, and that was, he was telling me, I love you. And many times in dreams, he told me he loved me so much.
Hare Krishna. Hare Krishna. Prabhuji can't hear you now.
I think I'll maybe stop there. Yeah. Can you hear?
I didn't hear the last line, what he said.
What part did I get to?
I think one or two sentences I missed. 2 sentences probably.
When he was stroking me, you got that part?
We heard that.
Okay, then I knew Gurudev loved me because he came to me many times in dreams. Many times. I'm talking about hundreds, more than that. And he would always tell me, he said, I love you so much. And he would give me instructions in his dreams, in my dream. And when I first was coming to Gurudev, Prabhupada came to me and he told me, Narayan, Maharaj and I are the same. There's no difference. And this is one of the reasons why I went to Gurudev also. And then I had one other experience with Gurudev and Narayan Maharaj. They were sitting both on an asana, And I went up to Gurudev. And Gurudev said, Prabhupada wants to talk to you. So I went over to Prabhupada. He's sitting on an asana, There was a bunch of people there, and he leaned over to me and he started chastising me really heavy about some philosophical thing that I either misunderstood or something. And I was totally devastated, And anyway, these kind of exchanges between the guru and the disciple are necessary to balance the disciple's ego so that he feels there's someone who cares, and to soften the heart, and we're many times proud, So Gurudev did that to me a number of times.
What kind of instructions you got from him in your dreams? Like you said, he gave you a lot of instructions.
It's so long ago, I can't even remember. Because it was a long time ago, and I never wrote them down, but he would give me different instructions in the dreams, and I can't really off my top of my head remember them because I'm getting older and I can't really remember so much. You know, but Gurudev would always tell us to soften the heart, culture the heart, and follow the teachings of Bhaktivedanta Thakur. Maybe he instructed me on something like that. I don't really remember. Even Prabhupada, when he was chastising me, I don't even remember any of it. I just remembered it was really heavy, and I felt like this big, you know. I was just totally like, you know, I had that with Gurudev too. Gurudev chastised me a few times. And Gurudev looked at me one time when I first met him, and he looked right in my eyes, you know. And I had just met him, and we went out during one program, and he turned around and he just looked at me. And he made me cry, you know. He had so much deep feelings in his heart, and I could feel so much love in his heart, you know. Another time when we would go on park on a walk, you know, and he'd go on a morning walk from here in Gopinath to one. And I was following him, and we went through where the subji market is, you know, in Lori Bazaar. There's a little like gully that goes through there, and we were about, you know, 100 yards inside, and Gurudev was in front, and I was maybe, you know, somewhere near the back or something, or in the middle. And he quickly turned around and he looked at me. He said, "Why are you following me?" So, I didn't know what to say. And he said, "Why are you following me?" And I had to say something. So I said, "Because I want to be with you, Gurudev." You know. And then he just like turned around and he kept walking, you know. So you didn't really know what to expect from me. I mean, what are you saying? When he said, "Why are you following me?" You know, why am I following you? Because I want your love, you know, I want to be with you. I love you, you know, this and that. And I always really like being with Gurudev. You know. He also told me, this is what a few things I wanted to say a little bit more, if you don't mind. Was that Prabhupada? Most people don't really know what Prabhupada's suit was, or there's a controversy over it. But I had questioned Srila Gurudev about it one time, and he told me I was about, you know, maybe, can you see this far? I was like about 1.5 feet away from Gurudev, and he was talking to me, and he said, "I know Prabhupada's manjari name." And he said, "I'm not going to tell you because I was very new at that time." And he said, "But you do your bhajan and Prabhupada will reveal it to you. When the time comes and you're more mature in your bhajan, Prabhupada will reveal it to you." And that's what he said. And on many tapes, Prabhupada, Gurudev would tell, like Tamal and all this, you should be sure that Prabhupada's a manjari. And he's in Madhurya Ras. There's one specific tape where Gurudev's talking, which I had found. Nobody else found it. I was like looking through Gurudev's, you know, on my computer. I had all Gurudev's tapes and, you know, his classes and stuff. And by just accident, I just happened to tap one. And all of a sudden, like on it comes Satsarup Maharaj, Giri Maharaj, and all these different people, and they had gathered Gurudev for a questionnaire about explaining Prabhupada's instructions to him. And Satsarup spoke first, and then Gurudev spoke. So I got the point where Gurudev was speaking. So he did his pranams and everything. He said, I don't know why Srila Prabhupada requested me to put him in samadhi, but he wanted me to do some service for him, you know, and I'm very fortunate. He gave me the opportunity to do service for him. He gave me special instructions, and through my darshans, through his conversations with him, through his books, I have firm determination that he was in Madhurya Ras. And it's a very definite description of Prabhupada's kirtans, which he led, and his instructions to him about putting him in samadhi. And Srila Gurudev did that. And I don't know if you heard it before, but he put his Samadhi mantra and his manjari name on his chest. And he wrote it. And he was telling this in a darshan. And he was telling how he put kumkum. Kumkum is for ladies. It's not for men. So he told me, he said, my Guru Maharaj, Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada, he also asked me to do the same thing. He had done the same thing for Keshu, same instructions. So he was telling them that, and he said, so I'm sure that Prabhupada was a Madhurya. And he put his name and put him in Samadhi and this and that. So I had found this by accident. And it was because there was such a controversy all over the world. People were fighting about whether Prabhupada was a Sakyas or not. And it wasn't clear in ISKCON, it wasn't clear for so many people, you know. What actually was Prabhupada's eternal Swarup? And I met Shruta Kirti the other day when I went to the ISKCON temple in the office of Panchagoda Prabhu. And Shruta Kirti was Prabhupada's direct servant for like 3 years. And I asked him about it, and he said, this is what Prabhupada told me. He said, mind your own business. And then he said, but Prabhupada, he would tell me, he'd look at a picture of the cowherd boys and said, I'm so attracted to the cowherd boys, you know, this and that. So Shruta Kirti was kind of saying like, we don't really know, we don't want to speculate, but Prabhupada told me a few times he liked the cowherd boys, you know. And because of his poem on the Jaladutta, it appears like that. But if you really analyze it, like in the true sense of the subject and the predicate, the real subject is if you want to please Srimati Radhika, that's the real subject. So not to please the cowherd boys. So if his subject is Radhika, that means he's a Radhika Palyadasi or a servant of Radhika. If he wasn't, then he would say if you want to please Krishna. So this is some of the evidence there, and Gurudev, you know, pointed some of this out. He also told Vrindavan Vilasini Prabhu that Prabhupada was her manjari Saki in the spiritual world. And he also told Sarjan Maharaj that Prabhupada was a manjari. And Gaur Govinda Maharaj, further evidence, I don't know if it's so interesting or not, because now it's like, you know, it's kind of like a harsh topic to talk about because of the controversy. But Gaur Govinda Maharaj had a class in Orisen language where he revealed Prabhupada's manjari name as Bimala Manjari. And there was a tape of it, and one of the women here had the tape because she's Indian and she was with Gaur Govinda Maharaj, and she had the tape, but somehow or other it got lost. So, you know, anyway. Any controversy, anyone thinks that Prabhupada was in Sakyas, then they're not really following Narayan Maharaj, because he made so many statements about it. And if you contradict what the Parampara teachings coming down through Balaram from Krishna all the way down the whole line is one, it's not two, it's each individual personality, but their hearts are one. And sometimes their teachings are a little, seem to be contradictory, but they're not. They're totally in coordination with each other, but due to time and circumstances, there seems to be differences. Like if you take Ramanuja and this, they had a different idea about the Swarup, you know, the Swarup is true, this, that, and the next thing. But are they not Sampradaya Acharyas? So according to the teachings and people that are involved at any particular time, you have to give them and evolve them according to their ability to adapt philosophically to the higher concepts and like this. And it has to be gradual, and you have to do it really cleverly, because people can become sahaji and misinterpret. So I only want to say that if you really want to follow Narayan Maharaj, and he said on tapes, everything I said, I meant it. Don't change it ever. If you change it, then this is not a good thing. And you're like demoniac. This is what he said on one thing. So, you know, I think if you want to ask me something, or if you want to speak something.
Sorry, Prabhuji, you was cut off. Have you
Oh, when
finished?
did I finish?
No, just last 2 words I missed.
Oh, so if you want to say something, or if you want to capsulize it or whatever, you know, I'm getting kind of tired, you know, so.
Okay. Okay, Prabhuji, thank you so much. We're really happy to hear from you. So many nice Gurudev's incidents. You started very beautifully that when you meet an elevated person, it will lift your consciousness about Prabhupada. And you said, I was expecting a giant. And he was indeed a giant, but in a different way. In a different way.
More than that.
Yes. And a big personality. He uplifted the whole airport, you said. Not only one person, a few persons, but the whole airport was uplifted. And I can't imagine how lucky you are to have met not 1, not 2, not 3, not 4, but 5 liberated souls in your own life. It is very, very rare, I think. If we can meet one person like this, we are very, very fortunate. But you are one of those who met 5 of them. And it's you met Prabhupada, you met Govind Maharaj, you met Radha Govind Maharaj, you met Sridhar Maharaj, and then you met our Srila Gurudev. So it's really, you're really blessed, I think, from all these highly elevated souls from different
I
worlds.
met you also.
No, I am nowhere, Prabhuji.
But just looking at you remind me of Gurudev, like you're an Udipam.
Prabhuji.
Gurudev gave so much Udipam.
Gurudev is there behind. On my head.
You know what? I'll tell you one more story. I have one more story. You know, you showed up,
Yes.
what's her name?
Go ahead.
Jamuna Devi. Remember Jamuna? Jamuna Devi from ISKCON. She was very famous.
I don't know the name. Okay.
She
I
very
know everyone by face.
Huh? She was very famous in ISKCON. She had the topmost world cookbook in the world. Her name was Jamuna.
Okay.
And she's the one who with George Harrison put out that album about Govinda Madi Purusham in England.
Okay.
When they first met them and they met, you know, George, and he helped ISKCON and gave them manner and everything like that. Anyway, once I met her a few times, she was such a really a beautiful person, you know. And Prabhupada said if she was a sannyasi, he'd make her GBC. If she was a man, I mean, he'd make her GBC. She was really intelligent. And she one time, just to show you, give you one thing. She came in Prabhupada. I was living in Prabhupada's room, and she came in one time. She came a number of times, and she walked in, and she went up to Prabhupada's picture. He had a picture there in the window of him taking prasadam outside Rupa Goswami's room, where Rupa Goswami had told him to go to the West and preach. And she went in front of the picture, and she said, Haribol Prabhuji, just like that. And it blew me out, you know, because she was so intimate with Prabhupada, and I had never met anyone who had that kind of like feeling for Prabhupada, you know, because most of the devotees were kind of like ornaments, you know, and she just went up to him and she said, and she told me another story, one more story. She told me when she was in Keshigat, she was living in Radha, somewhere around Radha Damodar, and she was in Keshigat, the Prabhupada was in Keshigat. And she went to his rooms early in the morning. It was very dangerous. And Prabhupada told her, he said, don't come this early in the morning. You're a woman. It's very dangerous. So she went one time and she was knocking on the door. And she heard Prabhupada inside. And he was talking to someone. And he didn't answer the door right away. So then about a minute or two later, Prabhupada opened up the door. And he let her in, and she went inside, and she was looking around to see who was there. And no one was there. And she said to Prabhupada, she said, Prabhupada, who are you talking to? You know who he said? He said, I was talking to the monkeys. He was talking to the monkeys, like Maharaj Prabhu used to talk to the tigers, you know. He tells them, chant Hare Krishna, and the tigers would dance, and they would chant Hare Krishna. it was probably in the Tiger language, but, you know,
Wow.
Prabhupada could have known, you know, monkey language, otherwise how could he talk to them? And he was talking to the monkeys. So anyway,
Wow.
I just wanted to bring that point up, that Prabhupada was not an ordinary person, you know, and him and Narayan had more Shakti for this present age than anyone, and they're the basic foundation for the world, behind the practical preaching of it to the world. Narayan Maharaj and Srila Gurudev. So I'd like to offer my humble obeisances again to both of them and to all the people who are listening here, and I hope I've said something beneficial.
No, Prabhuji, it was so inspiring. All of your talks were so much inspiring. I'd like to quickly summarize all of this.
Okay.
You said you were captivated by his personality, extremely friendly. Talked how friendly he was to you. And then he was breaking my ego very subtly, you said, very subtly. Every time, like sometimes he would talk nicely, sometimes he would chastise. And it's surprising that you met him first time and he chastised you. People are waiting for years for him to chastise, like they want his chastisement, but he doesn't give. But to you, he gave you first time, not only first time, second time also.
Really heavy. You can't even imagine. I was like, wow.
So he knew that you are pakka, because he won't give to normal people, because he knows that they're going to run away, you know, on the very first chastisement. But you took two of them, and that two very first and second ones, and you got yelled at, and but you were still steady with him. So yeah, he tested you on the very first day, I think, and then he put your foot on your head. I mean, how many people has he put his foot on head? I mean, not many. Probably one or two, maybe.
Yeah.
So I think you are really, really blessed. And then you said he would hug you every time he met you.
When I first met him.
That's so.
I had gone to the West, you know. When I first met Gurudev, I had to go to the West for my visa. And Gurudev said, "Oh, you have to go." He said, "You won't come back, you know." Can you hear me? He said, "You won't come back."
Yeah, I can hear you.
And I said, "Oh, no, Gurudev, I'll come back." I had gone to the West. I went to the embassy. I got there. I went to the embassy the same day, registered for the embassy. Next day, I got my visa. And I came back the day after that. And when I came, I had to spend the night. I don't know if you know New York, but I had to stay in Rockefeller Plaza, which is like really dangerous. You know, the police can put you in jail. I had no money. I didn't know where to stay. I stayed in Rockefeller Plaza. Anyway, so I came back and Gurudev saw me. So he looked at me. He said, "When are you going?" And I said, "Gurudev, I already went." And he was so happy. He like had a big smile on his face. And I'm so happy, you know, because he wanted me to go and Parakrama, you know. And just the exchanges with him were something that will live with you forever, you know. So,
and then Gurudev told you a very nice thing: be near me, you'll pick up my house. Yes. And we should all learn from this. We should all be near our Guru Varga, senior people, and not only near, but in front of them. I remember Gurudev would tell so many times, don't sit on the side or behind a Guru. You should sit right in front. And he said, I transfer energy through my eyes. I heard him say this. So it's very important where you sit among, when you're in front of
eyes, words, desire.
Yes, everything. And then he said, I'm so strong, I can defeat the whole world. Look at his power. If he wanted, he can defeat anybody. And he said he can change the heart of everyone. And again, then he told you very nice thing: empty your mind and heart. I will install what is required. So yes, we should all try to do this. Learn from what he said to you. We should empty ourselves. Only then we can get something. Vishramba Seva, intimate Seva, you talked. Then you talked about Rati, Samarth Rati, Samanjasya Rati, and Sadharana Rati. Gurudev would often talk about these topics. And you said every time he would give you something different. It's very exciting to meet Gurudev.
All the way up to Mahabhav, the whole stages.
Yeah.
You know, Sneha, Man, Rag, Anurag, Bhav, Mahabhav, Ruda, Adiruda, Chitta Jalpa. I mean, explain it like, I'm serious. Explain it like in school, you know, how they teach you in school? And you have to take notes and everything. And he trained us like really heavy, because if he didn't do it, who's going to do it? Who would do it? He had to, you know, he wanted this to go on for a long time, you know, and he wanted people to learn it. He really wanted to give Krishna and love of Krishna. And he said many times, this is what I have interest for, and I don't want to, everybody said, don't speak this subject, but I have no desire to speak of anything else.
Then he said, develop your internal heart, not mind or intelligence. That's what we need to do. And very sensitive to your feelings and emotions. Gurudev was always to everyone. Even a small boy went there. He was very sensitive to all his feelings. And then he asked you what color my room should have. I said, painted color of a rainbow. Only you can say that, I think, to Gurudev and joke with him like
that. I mean, everybody was like, wow, how can you say like that?
And Gurudev also took it in a good spirit and he laughed with you.
He laughed so hard.
And then he said, I used to sleep under the bed of his own Gurudev, and he allowed you to sleep under his bed. That is such a great thing, I think. If your Gurudev
I didn't do it, but he told me
should
I
have.
could.
Why not? You should have gone, man.
Not so easy. Madhav Maharaj is always there. You know.
Now you have Gurudev's permission.
You know, very difficult.
And
I also wanted to be Gurudev's servant, you know. And I told Gurudev that. I said, Gurudev, I was servant of Prabhupada in his rooms. I want to be your servant. And he said, well, you have to deal with Madhav Maharaj about that.
That's not in my power, he said.
Yeah, no. I knew I
can do
could
anything else.
never.
Yeah. Yeah. And then how you changed from Gudakesh to Gopijanvallabh, which you always wanted.
Yeah.
Yeah. And the thing was, when you paid the whole temple, I'm happy with you. I can imagine when the Gurudev tells you that he's so happy with you, you are on top of the world. There's nothing better than that. And he said, I'm so happy with you. You cleaned my whole temple. I'll put you on top of that something. What was that? He'll put you top of
So
that.
on top of, you
roof.
know, there's 3 different domes up there for the deities.
Yeah.
So he said, not on that dome, but on the top, there's like a ring or something. He said, I want to put your murti up.
Wow. Wow.
You know.
It's really nice if you can please your Gurudev like this. There's nothing better than that. And then how he knew that deities are not happy. See, I mean, only a Mahabhagavad can see whether deities are happy, not happy, or are they getting enough. So, and then you talked about to displease a Guru is so devastating. It is indeed. I mean, there can be nothing worse than that if a Guru is not happy with you. And he had various pastimes, sometimes pleased, sometimes neglecting. And you know, he had this with most of the people. He would neglect, sometimes not talk, look other side, and then sometimes be very close and intimate. So he used to do all these leelas with a lot of people.
But it's necessary.
Yes.
You know,
to increase your love for him.
because he was doing something very special. You know, he was trying to make you give your heart. And if you're neglected, you think, what am I doing wrong? You know?
Yeah.
Really, it makes you introspective, you know.
You always thinking.
You start thinking within yourself, what am I doing that's not pleasing Gurudev? And that was the only reason why he used to do it.
Yeah.
You know?
And then somebody asked him, what I'm going to West, what if I don't think of you? They said, if you don't think of me, you're not my disciple. So we should always try to remember our Guru. We're trying to do it for so many months every day, and we should make it a part of him all the time. If we do not, then he is not as a disciple.
It's not easy. Gurudev said maybe one disciple Prabhupada had. And you know who he said it? You know who he said it was?
Oh, who?
Me.
Wow, really?
Not me, but him.
Oh, him. Okay, I thought maybe
he said, I am Prabhupada's only disciple. And then he said, why? He said, because I fully surrendered to him. That is why I'm his only disciple. and I had no motive. He was my Shikshaguru, and I followed him what he told me to do. Can I say one more thing? Is that possible?
Sorry, what is
I
it?
can say one more thing.
Yeah, please go ahead.
One last thing is that Gurudev, when he was preaching all around the world, he was very, very effective, you know. And he came back to Govardhan in India one time, and he was with Madhav Maharaj in Govardhan. And Govardhan, he looked over at Madhav Maharaj. He said, why have I been so effective in the world? Why has my preaching been so successful in the world? And Madhav Maharaj said, because you're Gurudev? And Gurudev said, no. He said, because Maharaj Vinod Bihari? He said, no. He said, I don't know, Gurudev, why were you so successful in preaching? He said, because I followed the instructions of Swami Maharaj. And he gave him special instructions at the last days of his appearance on this planet. He asked Prabhupada to preach, Gurudev to preach with the ISKCON people and preach to the world about Raganuga and teach my disciples. And he said, and he blessed him. He put his hand on his head. And he Prabhupada couldn't even hardly move, you know. He was about ready to leave his body. He lifted his hand up and put his hand on Gurudev's head and blessed him. And he said, that is why I could preach so successfully in the world, because Swami Maharaj empowered me to preach. You know?
It's true. Without empowerment, I think nobody can preach anywhere. You need some empowerment by higher authorities, and you need their blessing. Otherwise, you can't do it.
Ultimately from Krishna.
Yes,
Krishna
yes.
empowers everyone. Even Balaram. All the way down.
So you talked about how books are passive, which you need interactive with a live guru. You cannot do it with the books. And then you talked about Giriraji, and he asked you, would you paint my face like that? Maybe he misunderstood you what he was saying.
Yeah, he did. He misunderstood.
Yeah. And then you talked about how he had explosive moods, and he could say how unpredictable he was, and all the time. He was very spontaneous and unpredictable. You don't know what is he going to do next.
Very natural.
Yeah.
Totally.
How he beat up a lot of people, how he banged one Maharaj, put him on the ground just because he's not coming.
Yeah.
I mean,
few people.
He has hit a lot many people I've heard. So many people have told, and he was hard. Even a lot of strong people were saying that when he hit, they don't know how much energy he gave in this blow. That was really hard. Those who got it, they are reporting like this. And then lastly, you said, Prabhuji, when you leave, please take me with you. So this shows your Guru Nishtha, so much attachment, you have so much love for your Guru. And after that, you sat on a bed with him. How much Vishramba Seva you had with him. Very few people, I don't think, not many people, maybe one or two can dare to sit on his bed, which you did. It shows your very close relationship, intimate relationship with Gurudev, and how you were stroking each other. He was doing it to you, you were doing it to him. How beautiful,
I think he
how much
wanted
love.
me there. I think he wanted me there. That's why I did it. Because without his mercy, I never would have done it.
Yes, yes.
I mean, it was such a
nobody can do it without he giving his permission. He has to open the door, then only somebody can come in. His aura was such that, I mean, you are forced to sit on the ground and you feel very happy sitting there. But you were so close, and he was so close to you. You got so many hugs from him, you got pats from him, you got his feet on your head. So I really feel that you're so much fortunate in this life, and I think your life has been really successful. We hope that we can follow your example in some life. We can learn from you how to have Guru Nishtha, how to serve Vaishnavas, how to please your Guru, how to find a service which Guru has not even given you. Like you painted the whole temple without anybody telling you anything. You you looked for, you found the service yourself. So this is very amazing, Prabhuji. Not many people have a service mood like what you have, and how much you pleased your Gurudev, what blessing he gave. He gave your heart to you. So we pray to Gurudev and also to you in your lotus feet that sometime we may have blessings from you and Gurudev, that we can do little service what you're doing, maybe 1% of that, 0.1%, because we have not done any kind of service, and we do not have that mood also to do service seva. So I pray to you that you have your blessing on us and do some service, and we can also please our Gurudev. He'll be happy with us. And I thank you so much, Prabhu. Thank you for being here and inspiring all of us. Thank you so much. And I thank all
the... It was a pleasure talking to you about Prabhu. Thank you so much for inviting me.
And I thank all the Vaishnavas, listeners, for being with us. Tomorrow we have a very special tithi. We have a disappearance day of Sri Raghunandan Thakur and also Vamsidas Babaji Maharaj, both disappearance days tomorrow. So we are going to hear from Gokul Chandra Prabhu tomorrow at the same time, 8 o'clock. And
every time 8 o'clock.
Yes, every day, Prabhuji, every day. It's been last 8 months.
Forever.
Hopefully, I don't know. If he wants, yes, why not? For the whole life. He has so many disciples, only 200 have spoken, maybe 190 or something. He has like thousands of disciples, more than 40, 50,000. So it can go for years and years.
So many in Mathura are there, you know.
Yes, yes.
That probably had more for years.
Yes, it can. I'm here for him. If he gives me his blessings, I would like to do it for whole life. Why not? And remember him every day of my life. What he did with so many people. This is how I feel so energized when I do this program and listen to very high Vaishnavas like you. I get so much inspiration and remembrance. Thank you, Prabhuji. Dandavat pranam.
Okay. Can I, one more thing about Vichitra? Can you check on that?
I remember I did her program, and I remember her pastimes also, what she did. She talked about Gurudev in, because she's doing so many programs, so she forgets which one she has done.
Oh, I see.
She's already spoken on 2, 3 of them. And I clearly remember her speaking about Gurudev in Jagannath Puri, wearing a lungi and doing some pastime, very funny pastime she talked about.
She also traveled with Gurudev so much, you know.
Yeah.
Did you do Padmanath Maharaj at all?
I'm trying my best, but somehow he's not responding to my what do you call Facebook messenger. If you can get him, I'll be very, very happy.
Tirthapad is going back to America on the 25th. I can ask him to.
Prabhuji, please ask him to. He has my number, and if he can get Bhagavat Maharaj has spoken. So many Maharajas have spoken, but Nemi Maharaj has not spoken, and Padma Maharaj has not spoken, and lot many more Maharaj have not spoken. Ashram Maharaj has spoken. I'll tell you the list if you can get any of those, because I'm not able to contact them properly. Prem Provision Prabhu has not spoken, Avdut Maharaj has not spoken, Vaikhanas Maharaj, Damodar Maharaj. So all these people, Nemi Maharaj.
Yeah. Like the Ganga Matas have this like online, you can, you know, do you put it out online? You can get any one of these conversations at any time?
No, I contact them on phone or I contact them on to the Facebook.
No, what I'm saying is, if someone wants to hear some of your varieties of talks, do you have them in a like a format or something that you can contact them? The recordings on the Facebook and YouTube. They're all recorded.
Yes, yes.
So you can put them on a USB stick and then run them on your computer.
I'll send you a link right away.
Okay, because I'd like to hear some of them, I think. And you have spoken also?
Yes, I have also spoken, yes.
Okay, so
in the beginning.
I want to hear.
Yeah.
Okay.
It's a fond memories of Srila Gurudev. If you search on the YouTube, fond memories of Srila Gurudev, you'll find all of them. And I'm going to send you a link for this program also, right away. Okay.
Okay.
Okay, Prabhuji. Last question I forgot to ask you. When are you taking sannyas? Gurudev wanted you to be sannyasi all the time.
I can answer that in a few short words. When Gurudev tells me,
Oh, okay.
I told them, I said, I'm not sure if I should or not. So if you want me to take sannyas, you please somehow or other inform me. I told Prabhupada, I asked Prabhupada, and I asked Gurudev, you please inform me if you want me to take sannyas, I'll take sannyas. But I talk to different people and there's different opinions. And my good friend, Sri Maharaj told me it's not really necessary. And Shamrani told me to take. Tirthapad told me to take. Few people told me to take. But I don't really feel like I'm that qualified. Because I'm hearing now in the Chaitanya Charitamrita that taking sannyas and all these things are the real thing that pleases Krishna is unalloyed devotion.
Yes, that's true.
If you can, even from any platform, whether you're a brahmachari or a sudra, if you can develop unalloyed devotion, this is the most important thing.
Yes.
So I don't want to do it if I'm not really, I mean, you have to have to be really sincere, you know. If you really want to be a puppet sannyasi, you should be a puppet sannyasi. And I mean, my conception of it is way beyond most general people. I mean, you know, faultless. And so I'm really hard on myself sometimes, but I know I don't meet the standards. So this is one of the reasons, but if I'm told to take, I will take.
Okay. Okay, Prabhuji. Dandavat
Okay.
pranam to Dandavat.
Thank you
Thank
so
you
much.
so much. Thank you.
Bye.
Great.